Welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Edge. I'm your host, Peter Jennings. I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry, and stoked for week 4. Of course, I'm joined by Adam Levitan and Al Zeidenfeld. Adam, I'm going to kick to you first. We need the news and notes on the podcast, and then we need to congratulate Al on an epic win in the 4-man.
Yep. Already gave a shout out to Al on the solo pod. How many shout outs can we give to Al? However, news and notes on the podcast. The Listener League, they did not hashtag make it smaller. They did not hashtag make it bigger. It remains 8K people. It remains rake free. I'm not going to go through the whole bit again about finding it. You know, go to Google, go to DK Playbook, find the logo. It's right there. I'm tired of that bit. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired about explaining the bit about how to get to the Listener League. And yeah, obviously the difference for Al, you know, I talked about on the solo pod, you know, I think the construction all three of us went with last week was correct. The big pivot that Al made was going for the Ertz fade and getting on Olsen. And I know he believes in his flow charts more than anyone on earth. And so that's how he got the W.
I mean, they've been profitable over the years. So like,
yeah.
They are back tested. These flow charts are back tested.
That's it.
And
no victory.
Al, you're supposed to say shout out to me. I mean, you really screwed that up.
No, I'm not about the shout out to me. Y'all remember the Fiesta pod. This is the most awkward podcast of all time. It's like, okay, we won. I'm on to week 4. I'm going to win it again.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just keep it moving and let's get into week 4 because we have a lot of games here. There are buys for the first time this season, but we still have a lot of games and it should be a really fun slate. Adam, we'll start with the Titans at Falcons. Total 46. Falcons are 4-point favorites here. Julio did end up having a really good game last week. What are the news and notes, specifically Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, before we get into it, you mentioned like the context of the slate. One thing I would say is that there's a couple games with a total below 40, and there's a couple more that I think could go below 40, even though they're around like 42 or 43. So like, yeah, for today's NFL, like there's some games that are really low scoring. And then you mentioned we have one bye. So it does feel like a smaller slate than usual. On the Falcons, Ito Smith was concussed early in that last game. So don't be fooled by Devontae Freeman's kind of a bloated touch count. I do think they'll get Brian Hill. If Ito Smith misses, I do think they'll get Brian Hill in there for the Ito Smith role. That said, Devontae Freeman remains very cheap if you don't think that he's washed and withered, which I haven't really made a decision on myself yet. And yeah, I mean, Calvin Ridley, he's going to be up and down. I mean, they have Sanu, they have Hooper, they have Julio, they have Devontae. I still believe in Calvin Ridley's talent, and he's going to have major spike weeks. Tennessee tries to play in a similar fashion to the way Indy plays, slow, hide the quarterback, don't let people beat you deep. So similar to Indy, you know, it's not a great spot in theory for the pass game, but like I played a Ryan Julio stack last week just because this stack is just like so explosive, and there's no reason to think that, you know, if you're part of the hashtag defense doesn't matter crowd, and I'm, you know, not fully on that crowd, but I think it has some merit that this is a totally fine spot for the Falcons.
I mean, there's so many other great spots on this slate that, yeah, like Devonta Freeman should see a good amount of value, or amount of volume. But as you said, there's like, do we really need to play him? Is he a must? Do we want to go with, you know, we always want to play running backs against Atlanta, but do we want to stuff in Derrick Henry on the road when we know that he's not all that involved in the passing game? Matt Ryan, I think, is going to be one of those guys who's fine pretty much every single week. He's 5,900, and Julio Jones is a play for me pretty much every week as well because he's just really, really good. But is this a spot where we can get massive allocation, or is this a spot where I want any of these guys near a cash game lineup? And I think the answer to both is no, because there's so many other great spots on this slate. I really, really, really like this slate again this week. I loved last week's slate. I'm very excited for this week's slate. I'm not as excited about this Tennessee-Atlanta game.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think Derrick Henry makes a really good tournament play. We saw last year at the end of the season, he was breaking slates left and right, really, you know, finished RB1 like the last 6 weeks last year. And this is still a good matchup, but hard to have a ton of faith in the Titans offense. One other play that I think will be sneaky in tournaments is Austin Hooper. Did have a couple touchdowns last week and just a tight end that people aren't playing in tournaments. So he's someone I think is interesting, but agree there really aren't any, strong cash game plays. If I had to pick one, I guess it would be Julio, but we'll get to some other guys I think make a ton of sense. Adam, any final thoughts here?
Nope.
All right, let's keep it moving to the Redskins at Giants. And man, Danny Dimes coming in hot with just an incredible game. Has already outscored Baker Mayfield in fantasy points with only one game started so far this year. What are the news and notes here, Adam?
Yeah, Danny Dimes flew the banner for team preseason. Wasn't the best week that team preseason could have had, but Danny Dimes was just, as expected, really awesome. I think Case Keenum got a little bit banged up, and there's been whispers that they'll go to Haskins or somebody else, but it looks like Case Keenum is going to start this game, which is whatever. Obviously, Al, the big news, the headline news in the fantasy world all week was Saquon Barkley's injury. And I can't believe the buzz, God, I mean, how much should I bid on Wayne Gallman out of $100? I can't face it. I actually have a FFPC team with Evan, and we bid.
Say, how much did you bid?
Yeah, I know. Like anybody cares, but we bid five. Our team is kind of thin. Felt like we needed him, so we bid 505 out of 1,000 and got him. The next bid was 470. But anyways, for our purposes, for DFSL, I think the questions are with Wayne Gallman. How much will Eli Penny who's a kind of a fullback hybrid? How much will Eli Penny / practice squatter John Hillman play? Will they keep the RB role the same in their offense as in the way they use Barkley? Is that the way they'll use Gallman as a pass catcher, and he's fine as a pass catcher? Will they use Gallman inside the 5-yard line? And will the offense run as efficiently as it would have with Saquon? So I think there's a lot of answers. I think DraftKings did a good job, or a reasonable job, of making Gallman 4,600. He's by no means an absolute slam dunk, but for a running back who has a chance at 15 to 20 touches, he's certainly in play. So I think one of the biggest decision points on the slate is how to play Gallman.
I think there's a lot of questions. I don't think there's a lot of answers. I think what we do know is that in the 4 games that he last was the guy with this Giants offense, and that was the end of the 2017 season. In 4 games, he had 11.3 carries per game and 4.8 catches per game. So as you said, 15 to 20 touches, some of those coming through the air. So those 4.5 PPR points, probably about what we can expect from him. He'll probably reach value, but I don't really want to attack Washington with running backs. That's not how we go after this team. They're horrendous against the pass. Danny Dimes looking like one of the best value plays on this slate. You could even say that the Washington pass game going up against the Giants is in a great spot. The Giants have allowed a league high 19 deep receptions and 5 deep touchdowns this year. And if you've got an F1 on your roster like the Redskins do with McLaurin, why not go to him? The Giants are also allowing a touchdown on 8.1% of their pass attempts this year. This is a game, and I don't usually talk about spreads, I don't usually talk about totals or whatever. This looks like a game that could kind of shoot out, not because the offenses are so super talented, but because the defenses just straight up suck.
Yeah, I think the Redskins passing game is underrated here.
Yep.
McLaurin's been just absolutely ridiculous. Great separation when you watch the film. And just getting a ton of opportunity. And there's a lot of stats about, how great he's been for his first 3 games this season. Scored a touchdown in every game. And, you can look to Trey Quinn as a really cheap play. I know Evan was actually on him really early in the season as well, Adam. But yeah, Danny Dimes is going to probably end up being the chalkiest quarterback. Sterling Shepard's a great play. Ingram's a great play. And Gallman will be very heavily owned. So I do expect this game to be stacked quite a few ways in tournaments, which is unfortunate from an ownership standpoint. But if you're playing Danny Dimes, do you have a preference out of who to stack him with, Adam? Do you think Ingram has more equity, potentially Shepard? How are you evaluating that?
Well, first you revealed yourself a team watch the tape there. I mean, that was disgusting. Also, I don't think Danny Dimes, I don't know. I did my first run of ownership projections. I did not have Danny Dimes the most owned quarterback on the slate. I actually project as of now, Russell Wilson to be the most owned quarterback on the slate. But, Danny Dimes is certainly going to be owned. Yeah, for stacking with Danny, I've just been on Evan Ingram so hard anytime he's been played without Odell Beckham in his career. So that would be the highest equity stack for me, would be Danny Dimes with Evan Ingram. But yeah, the corner play for the Redskins is just, just total dust.
Josh Norman
and, oh my God, yeah. Yeah, it's over for Josh Norman. Yeah, so So yeah, and they've had injuries there too, and they're just bad. They're on a short week. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm not as interested. And the Giants have arguably the worst pass rush in the league, and obviously and arguably the worst coverage unit in the league. And I'm still hesitant on Redskins pass game. Sounds like I'm lower than you guys on Redskins pass game.
Well, the total's 49.5 here, and I think Al made really good points. I mean, just look at how well teams have done against this Giants defense. I mean, Mike Evans has just a total eruption game. Basically, they're allowing all these huge plays downfield. And, this total, when it first opened up was around 46, coming into the year, and now 49.5. Giants have one of the highest team totals. So I think people are really going to look at this game. Al, any final thoughts here?
No, I mean, just be careful. I mean, if you're building lineups by hand, then obviously you're going to build your stacks the way you want. But this is a game where I'm going to want to group it, and I'm going to want to bring it back with other guys. I think that McLaurin's one of the best value plays on the slate. So I think we're going to see a lot of these guys in cash game lineups, maybe as many as 3, possibly 4 in some people's 50-50 lineups this week.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to the Chargers at Dolphins. And this Dolphins team is just, it's play all the dudes every week versus them, including the defenses. Big news with the Chargers, Melvin Gordon ending his holdout. Adam, what are the additional news and notes?
Yeah, Melvin Gordon is going to report to the team today. We're recording this Thursday around noon, but he will not play in Sunday's game at Miami. So, I mean, we know what's going to happen here. We know it's going to be Phillip Rivers dropping back and looking to Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. I should note that Mike Williams came into last week with a knee injury, and now he missed practice on Wednesday with a back issue. I don't know if it's serious, but Mike Williams has had a history of back issues before. I mean, I think I've played both Eckler and Keenan together in cash each of the last 2 weeks. It's just so concentrated, and playing Miami, there's no reason to think that they won't be efficient. Once again, pricing has gone up. Eckler is now at $8K, and Keenan is up in the DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones range, and deservedly so. But yeah, the only other news and note I had on this game was Albert Wilson may make it back, so I was hoping he wouldn't, so that Preston Williams, my boy from offseason / preseason, and Peter's boy from CSU, would be able to get some more run. But I don't know. We'll see. I haven't thought too much about if it'll affect Preston Wilson yet or not, but I would consider Albert Wilson questionable.
12 targets for Preston last week, including a lot of red zone work. Miami's allowed a league high 10 touchdown passes. They've allowed 10.3 yards per pass attempt. I think they're on pace to allow 53 touchdowns this year through the air, and they've allowed like a touchdown percentage of 10.3. That is higher than Patrick Mahomes's 9.1% touchdown percentage. So if we talked about regression with them, but we're not talking about it with Miami because they just don't have anything on defense to stop anybody. As far as Austin Eckler, this is probably going to be our last chance to play him. I've got him in a lot of season-long leagues. I paired up with Stephen A. Smith to draft a season-long team, and this was the voicemail that he left me when we found out that MG3 was going to come back. I mean,
this is look, man. I am suffering.
I was not pleased either. Okay, so this is our last chance to get Austin Eckler at 8K on DraftKings and his 6+ catches every week. We have massive touchdown equity because of the fact that they're playing Miami, who is just hemorrhaging touchdowns to opponents. They're giving them out like they're party favors at a kid's party, right? You go to Miami and you get some buttercream frosting and a goodie bag with a touchdown in it. So give me Keenan Allen in tournaments. I don't know if I really want him in cash because I don't know if he's going to get the 10 targets that we would normally expect from him because of the fact that they probably won't have to go to him, but his touchdown upside is up, even though the volume expectation from 13, 17 targets, in my estimation, could come down. Pete?
Yeah, I think you guys hit on everything here. I mean, the Chargers defense is going to be in play again, even though they're very expensive. Eckler is a phenomenal play. I think you could actually play Justin Jackson in tournaments as well. This could be his one big game before Melvin Gordon comes back. That's obviously a thinner play, but certainly has a lot of touchdown equity against this Dolphins team. I mean, the total in this game sitting around 44.5 with a 15.5 point spread for the Chargers on the road. So huge team total for the Chargers. Monitoring the Mike Williams situation quite a bit, was hopeful he would be healthy and come back because he actually has looked okay even with that knee injury, and he's a big play guy. We saw how many touchdowns he had last season. On the Dolphins side, I was really excited to play Preston Williams, but Have to monitor the Albert Wilson news. He's someone I'll be excited to play at some point down the road. I'm a big believer in Albert Wilson's talent, and obviously the Dolphins are going to be playing from behind basically every game this season. So I'll be monitoring that as well, and I definitely think there's some high equity plays, but the Chargers are priced up. Adam, any final thoughts here?
Nope. All right. I assume that was a bit, Al. You don't actually have a team with Stephen A. Smith, do you?
Yeah. Full disclosure, I do not have a team with Stephen A. Smith.
Okay,
All right. Raiders at Colts here. The Colts. This is a really interesting game to me for a lot of reasons. Adam, I'll let you get into the news and notes. But this is a spot where the Colts are still getting quite a bit of respect, and I think people are starting to realize even without Andrew Luck, this Colts team is really good.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, though, the problem for fantasy is that they want to just run the ball so much and just play so slow and play good defense and use their offensive line. I mean, and with T.Y. Hilton banged up, and I would be a little bit surprised if T.Y. Hilton played in this game. They also don't have Devin Funchess. I mean, they just have no incentive whatsoever to open things up. I know you like Marlon Mack. I assume that's what you're orgasming about over there.
Nope.
But no,
Marlon Mack's one of them, but I got another play.
Okay. On the other side, Ryan Grant's been released. I'm not sure it matters too much. I mean, tough spot, Oakland back-to-back road games, first to Minnesota, now to Indy. So, the best play for sure on Oakland and one that I assume people are going to be on, even though he's priced up, is Darren Waller, just because of the way Indy plays defense. They just force everybody to want to throw to their tight ends. That's just the way they want to do it. So, I don't know. I sounds like I'm lower on this game also than you guys, or at least Peter.
I mean, how could you not be excited about the Walrus?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's a wide receiver. He's not even a tight end. It says tight end next to his name, but he is certainly not being utilized like a tight end. He's essentially running routes on 80% plus of Carr's dropbacks, with just a ridiculous amount of usage, right? Being targeted on over 20% of those as well. Hasn't gotten into the end zone. He's exceeded value every single week on volume alone. You know how much I love that, right? And his price still isn't at the point where he's being priced like an elite tight end, even though he is running routes just like all the elite tight ends. So to me, he is an underpriced Ertz. He is an underpriced Kittle. And he has been for 3 weeks and remains at that point because DraftKings has been hesitant to move guys at tight end all the way up to kind of where they should be priced. I think that he's definitely a cash game viable player. I don't think there is a cash game must at tight end this week, I think is what I'm trying to say. I think that he is cash game viable because he still allows you flexibility while giving you elite usage.
Yeah, I like Waller quite a bit. He's one play I'm excited to talk about. I actually think the Colts defense with Marlon Mack makes a ton of sense. I was really excited to talk about him like you referenced, Adam. I think Marlon Mack is one of the best plays on the slate. Really encouraged. He's off the injury report now and just looks like a really good player. And he's getting a ton of opportunity and he's playing behind one of the best offensive lines. They're 7-point favorites with a 45-point total, so that makes a ton of sense. The one play that I've been excited about all year and hasn't paid off yet, and it could pay off this week, would be Deion Kane. Huge believer in his talent. Did have the injury to his ACL that he's still maybe not quite 100% from, but if T.Y. Hilton does miss, Deion Kane is a cheap play that I think has a lot of upside, and man, for some season-long stuff, I need Deion Kane at some point to go off. So that's what I'm excited about. I think it's a great spot against this Raiders team that I don't think is very good, and I think you can play Mack, the Colts defense, and Waller for sure. Adam, what are your thoughts on Deion Kane? I know you're probably going to talk me out of this one.
Yes.
No, I played Deion Kane, like I think it was the first game after Funchess' injury. I played him a little bit. And I was just disappointed that he rotated so much with like Zach Pascal and like these other dust balls. So, but now if Hilton's out also, it's like, God, they could just go 2 tight end base with Doyle and Ebron, which they've been hesitant to do, which would not be great for Deion Kane. But if they keep playing the way they're playing, they almost have to play Deion Kane a ton. And yeah, agree with you on talent. I would love to play Deion Kane.
Yeah.
Is anybody going to get over 4 targets of these wide receivers between Paris Campbell, Pascal, and Kane or Rodgers?
That's the problem. It's clearly, this is tournament only, and this is like a very leverage type play. This is a millionaire maker type play. But yeah,
the cliff diver play. You're either going to be a grand champion or you're going to end up being stuff on a rock.
Exactly. But that I seldom get really excited about those types of plays, and it is biased because I've been excited about a potential breakout for Deion Kane this season, but we will see. Let's move to the Panthers at Texans, and a really great game from Kyle Allen, Adam, which you were higher on Kyle Allen than the market last week. What are the news and notes here?
Yeah, shout out to me on the Kyle Allen column. One thing that I don't know, just off topic and probably more of a solo pod topic, but like, people take projection. I've had this argument so many times. People take projections as data. Projections are not data, and there's a lot of guesswork and a lot of opinion even in projections, even with people that are doing them in the most mathematical way possible. So yeah, I was super confident that Kyle Allen would play well, and in a large part because they played Arizona. So I don't want to like go overboard on any of these Carolina guys. Like, playing Arizona is such the nut spot for reasons that we'll get to when we get to that game, I guess. But yeah, Cam is going to be out again. Kyle Allen's going to play. I think he'll play well again, but it's certainly, even though it's not a bad spot, it's not the same spot that it was against Arizona. But as you can see, like, the skill players are certainly in better shape now than they were with this version of Cam Newton. On the other side, we saw Kenny Stills kind of take over the number 3 wide receiver role ahead of Kiki Kute. And yeah, they continue to use Duke Johnson in an extremely disappointing manner. On the other hand, Christian McCaffrey literally is going to play 100% of the snaps, so you know that he's a good play. Yeah, that's about it. Shout out to me.
Playing the role of David Fizdale on today's podcast is Adam Levitan. Take that for data. I mean, for me, I like a lot of things in this game, okay? One of them, Pete's going to... I feel this is a Pete baby spot. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, forget all the Deion Kane nonsense, first of all. If you're going to play a deep threat, have it be Will Fuller.
My guy. I like that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Baby. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where you want to be. Watson's thrown a touchdown on almost 11% of his career deep pass attempts. We saw Godwin get loose against them deep. 4 of 5 of his deep targets were caught for 88 yards and a touchdown. And Fuller is really just on the field all the time, right? And he has run over 30 routes in all 3 of his games this season. Carolina has struggled against the pass for the last few years. Nothing is different this year. He's not going to draw their number 1. That's going to go to the other side of the field and DeAndre Hopkins. So Fuller's going to get to run free and run deep. And I think that when he hits big. We've seen that in the past. And I think that this is, if we're going to take a tournament flyer on somebody who gets 5 to 7 targets at 4,500, who can get behind a defense, I think there's 2 of them this game. One of them is Will Fuller. The other is Samuel.
Yeah, baby is right. Will Fuller is one of the guys I was really excited to talk about on this slate. I think he's near the top of my tournament list right now, just because you look at his distributions. I mean, when he's been healthy playing with Watson, even with a slow start this year, he's been absolutely incredible. Touchdown machine. And, you look at the stats in terms of just raw speed, and we know speed kills. Will Fuller, has been the fastest guy in the field for a long time. And I think it's a really, really good play at home here for the Texans. And I think a lot of people are going to look to Hopkins, who's obviously always going to be a high equity play, but Will Fuller is just the perfect tournament spot. I do like Samuel quite a bit. I think DJ Moore is interesting. Al, I have to get your opinion on Olsen. I can't play Greg Olsen, but you nailed it last week, but I assume that's just a flowchart thing.
I mean, you'll hear it again later on this slate. We're going to go back to the flowchart, kind of like we have all 3 weeks this season. I mean, Adam made a tweet, and I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit, about quarterbacks against Arizona and how they've done. And I immediately responded, now do tight ends. So that's, you can guess where we're going. It's a little bit of foreshadowing for you. Adam, anything else on this game? Oh, by the way, Christian McCaffrey, he's good. Play him.
Greg Olsen looks pretty good, man. I mean, if you're going to be on Team Watch the Tape, I wouldn't totally dust Greg Olsen yet.
No, he's getting a good amount of looks, 9, 9, 7 in terms of targets each of the first 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
to me, it's about usage. His volume's been there.
Yeah. I mean,
But the price is up to 4,200 following the flowchart game. I'd prefer to pay mid threes for somebody like that. Once we get into the 4,000 range,
yeah.
I think that there's better targets.
No, I know. Peter just said that, Olsen might be total dust. He might be, but.
He had a great game last week. That was incredible. And yeah, Chris McCaffrey is really, really good. And this is definitely a game that you can stack up. There's, 3 options on the Panthers that I like, and 3 to 4 options on the Texans. Hopefully Duke Johnson at some point gets more opportunity. The Carlos Hyde situation is just really, really tilting, and that's a play I'll struggle to make, but definitely a good game to stack up. Adam, before we move to the next game, though, you have a message from our friends at LinkedIn.
Yes. Building a winning team is all about finding the right people for the job. That's why teams all over the world spend so much time recruiting athletes they need on the field. And when it comes to hiring for your business, there's no better tool than LinkedIn. Over 600 million members visit LinkedIn to connect, learn, and grow as professionals and discover new job opportunities. That's how LinkedIn can make sure your job post gets in front of people you want to hire, people with the right hard and soft skills you're looking for. Things like collaboration, creativity, adaptability. LinkedIn does the legwork to match you to the most qualified candidates so you can focus on hiring the person who will have a big impact on your business. And a hire is made every 8 seconds on LinkedIn. That's why companies use LinkedIn to hire, rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can pay what you want and the first $50 is on them. Just visit linkedin.com/edge. That's linkedin.com/edge to get $50 off your first job post. Terms and conditions, of course, apply.
I think you nailed it. I think that was a very good ad read.
We're gonna have another ad read later that's gonna be almost as professional.
I'm just saying. I think you nailed it.
Great.
Well, I think we've given our friends at LinkedIn, we love them, and we're ready to move on to the highest total game on the slate. Chiefs at Lions, Adam, currently sitting at 54.5, which is pretty crazy considering the Lions are playing the way they are. But you have a generational quarterback on the other side going into a dome. So what are the news and notes here?
The Lions are undefeated. Show them some respect.
Oh, no, they're a good team. I'm not saying that. They want to run the ball and play slow.
Yeah. Still no Tyreek Hill for the Chiefs, so we know it's going to be the 3-wide set that we've seen the last couple weeks, DeMarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman. The running back spot is where it gets kind of tricky for the Chiefs. We don't know yet what's going to happen. It seems like Damian Williams is going to miss again with his knee issue. Seems like LaShawn McCoy is going to play through his ankle issue. They showed no interest whatsoever in using Darwin Thompson last week. So, I think a 2-man backfield again of LaShawn McCoy and Darrell Williams makes the most sense. On the other side, a big injury for the Lions. I mean, they're thin in the secondary, and Darius Slay, obviously their best member, their secondary, one of the best corners in the league. He's questionable, hurt his hamstring last week. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see reasons to think this won't be another Mahomes just obliteration game. I mean, dude gets 30 DraftKings points like it's nothing every single week, and I don't see many reasons to think that this won't be one also.
We got to run it back with some Detroit guys against the KC stacks. So basically, KC stacks are in play every single week. You should be playing them in your tournaments. If you're not, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's been a year and a half. My question is, and this is we could talk about the easy ones, right? Like, I think Galladay is still a good play. I think that we got unlucky with him last week in the sense that he still had 8 targets, but only caught 2 balls. I think Marvin Jones is in play. I think that we see Hawkinson run more routes this week based on the fact that they're going to have to throw. He's kind of declined every single week in terms of routes run on dropbacks from Stafford. So yeah, all the pass catchers are in play, but I see a lot of people really, really, really wanting to play Kerryon Johnson based on his increased role in week 3, but he didn't see an increased role in the pass game, which makes me wonder, is he a trap this week at 5,400, or is he, maybe just going to fall into the end zone because there's expected to be a lot of scoring? Are we going to see the same thing this week in week 4 like we saw in week 2 with Josh Jacobs? Like, is he the trap of the week at 5,400?
Yeah, I'm not super high on him. What are your thoughts, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I like Kerryon. I think we're dealing with.
I like Carry-On too, but like, do I like him this week? Is something I'm really struggling with as we're recording here on a Thursday.
Yeah. No, I meant I like him this week. I think that Detroit is going to find ways to get in the red zone and to score and to keep this game close, I suspect. I mean, the problem with Jacobs is, I mean, they're just such a bad team. I mean, they just got totally dusted, and Jacobs is like, no, like they have, I think relatively little interest using him in the pass game. I think the Lions want to play Ty Johnson some, but Carry-On's been very good in the pass game in his career. I mean, the thing with Carry-On is he's only like 800 more than Gallman, and like I think I'd rather play Carry-On than Gallman. I mean, I'm going to have to think about that more, but I think so. I don't know for sure yet.
Yeah.
I mean, in Johnson's defense, Kansas City's allowing a league-high 6.16 yards per carry. They were second worst last season with just under 5. And Johnson got 80% of the running back carries. And we just saw in a game where Baltimore, a very good team, got throttled, we saw Mark Ingram have 3 rushing touchdowns. So, yeah, there's a possibility that Johnson goes off here. But is he going to be utilized in the pass game? That's really all I'm struggling with this play. Like, is he going to be the guy that just ends up with like 80 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 catch?
Mm-hmm. I shouldn't say I'm not high on him. I love Carry-On. I think he's such a talented player. Free Carry-On's been a movement. A lot of people have been behind Adam. You've been doing that on Twitter for a while. I really like him. There are game flow scenarios where I think he does extremely well, and I do think the Lions will be able to put points on the board. But if game flow gets away from them, I just expect to see a little more of Ty Johnson. But I do like Carry-On, I guess, relatively. Just haven't really considered him for cash. Maybe I should look at that more closely. I want to talk about the other side of the ball, though, with the Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes is just so freaking good. We know he's going to, it's unbelievable watching him play, the throws he's making, and all these pass catchers are in play every single week. I mean, McCole Hardman had a good game last week. Obviously, Demarcus Robinson's been balling since Tyreek Hill went down. Travis Kelce should have like a huge game at some point, right? Like, there's just so many. There's all the Chiefs pass catchers, I think, are great tournament plays every single week. And I think, Mahomes should be in consideration all the time in cash. I think in general, people haven't played him enough. And obviously, historically, we want to spend down at quarterback. And I do think, Danny Dimes and Russell Wilson are awesome plays, specifically Russell Wilson. But Patrick Mahomes, how likely is he to get the DraftKings bonus? It's such a huge percentage of the time, and he's playing indoors. Everyone's putting out the, video of him throwing that 75-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill indoors. He was amazing indoors in college. I'm super high on Patrick Mahomes. What do you think, Al?
I usually look to pay down at quarterback. If there's a lot of value, if you can find a lot of value, I'm not going to force Mahomes into a lineup for 50-50s, but I'm also not going to look at a lineup and laugh in a head-to-head if they've got Patrick Mahomes in there. They're just going to have to find one extra value than I would have to find if I pay down at quarterback. But I feel like they're also guaranteeing a little bit of a higher floor, although I think that guys like Danny Dimes, and obviously I believe that Russ Wilson has a higher floor than normal based on the opponent this week. Mahomes has both the floor and the ceiling pretty much every single week.
Yeah, he's averaging 32.3 DK points through 3 weeks indoors. And one other guy I want to mention too, we talked about Galladay, I think Marvin Jones, love Hawkinson. If you believe Ty Johnson's going to be involved in the passing game, Matthew Stafford is a really good tournament pivot away from Danny Dimes and some of these other guys in that, mid 5K range. Stafford should be low owned, and if they're playing from behind, we know that's good for quarterbacks, and he's a pretty interesting play, and you still get exposure to Mahomes if you play a lot of Stafford teams because, assuming you're running it back with some of these Chiefs pass catchers. So I like Stafford quite a bit as a tournament play as well. Adam, any final thoughts here?
You want a funky Kyle stat?
Let's hear it.
You want a funky Kyle stat? Here it comes.
Of course.
11 of Stafford's best 14 games in his career have come when he's been playing at home. And 11 of Stafford's best 14 games have come in games with a 50 plus point spread. This game is 54. Yep. I'm not saying that he's going to have one of his best career games, but all the signs seem to point to yes.
Yeah, I like Stafford quite a bit. He's just building some tournament teams. I've built quite a few of them with Stafford already, and makes a lot of sense to me this week. Let's move to the Browns at Ravens. The Browns hype has, coming into the season was so high, and now Everything's going against them after they threw up another dud. Baker and the media all over the place right now, Adam. Now they go into Baltimore and face this Ravens team, which is running the ball with Lamar and other running backs as well as anyone. So news and notes here and your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns look like an absolute mess. And now, David Njoku, we know, remains out. He's on IR. Demetrius Harris is their starting tight end for what it's worth. And, the encouraging thing, or what I thought was interesting last week, was they did play Nick Chubb on all pass downs, ended up playing him on 99% of the snaps. But now offensive coordinator comes out and says, it wasn't the offensive coordinator. I forget who it was, but said, we don't want to play Nick Chubb like that again. So maybe we'll see D'Ernest Johnson, and Nick Chubb will be back down at like 60 to 70%. I mean, I still think from a personnel perspective, you want to attack the Ravens through the air while Jimmy Smith is out, while Tavon Young is out. So, I'm okay with Cleveland guys like Odell. And then the other injury note, Mark Andrews, it seemed like he was legit 50-50 and like everybody assumed he was going to play. I was kind of shocked that he was as owned as he was last week. Given his injury, it seems like he's actually at less than 100%. Maybe he'll be healthier this week. Maybe he won't, but either way, I think that's something to watch.
Now can I just vent about the Browns for a second, and maybe you can talk me off this ledge? They had all their plays called by Kitchens last season for the second half of the year. He took over as a coach. They got really, really aggressive with Baker Mayfield. They were throwing the ball downfield. They were attacking opponents' defenses. They were clearing safeties off the line, which helped the run game as well. They were doing all the things with the tools that they had. Then they added, you can take this any way you want, a really big tool in Odell Beckham Jr. to this offense that allows them to stretch the field a little bit more, which allows them to have him pull safeties off the line, maybe run Landry on the short routes, or switch that up, run Landry deep, and have him run that little 6-yard drag route, that slant route, and take it 65 to the house. But they're running routes and throwing the ball around the field based on the next-gen stats, kind of like Arizona, with really low yards per attempt. What are you doing, Kitchens? Why don't you just do what you did last year, or pass the play sheet over to Monken and let him call the plays? Because you have all these great tools on offense with which to do the things that everybody projected that you would do, and you're not doing them. So can somebody please explain to me why they're doing things differently than when they were having so much success last year with less offensive weapons? Because right now against Baltimore, this looks like a great spot where those weapons could come into play against Baltimore's diminished secondary and their inability to run the ball with Chubb up the gut as much as they would like to. This seems like a good spot for lowered ownership on Cleveland Browns pass game, but are we almost at a spot of no confidence in the play calling?
Yeah, I would say, too, the biggest thing that, the one concern coming into the season for this team, because I too, was high on Baker, Odell, and Chubb, is the offensive line. And, I think people underrate the line of scrimmage a lot when evaluating these NFL teams, and that has hurt them. But I agree with you. What the heck are they doing in terms of the play calling? Just a lot of arrogance, Adam, and I know you've been talking about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, hashtag free Todd Monken, man. I mean, it is what it is. But
They ran a draw on 4th and 9.
Yeah, I mean, Kitchens came out and said that he's not giving up the play calling duties. So, you're kind of just shouting into air. It's a waste of our precious time out here. It is what it is.
I mean, we got all the time we want. It's not like we got to hard out. The podcast, Adam. It's not like we have to hit commercial breaks when we got to hit, at 59:20, we got to hard out and go into commercial.
I was referring to our precious time on this earth, not our precious time on this podcast.
Fair enough. Hashtag let Smiz rant. Shout out to me.
I like the rant a lot, Al.
Thank you.
On the Baltimore side, Mark Ingram coming off a really, really big game. Lamar Jackson's been awesome all year. Really love him for fantasy in general, and he'll probably be lower owned this week relative to previous weeks. Marquise Brown could have had a really big game, did not end up having a big game. But I think all the Ravens here are probably really good plays in general, just because there's some shinier objects this week. Are you looking more towards the running game or the passing game here, Adam?
I mean, Lamar has the best floor of any fantasy quarterback other than Mahomes, I would say. I mean, Lamar is just every week, I think I said before the week 1 show like very few quarterbacks have a chance to score, like hit the 100-yard rushing bonus and score 3-4 touchdowns rushing and receiving every week. It's like, Lamar is just an amazing fantasy player. And I've been lower than market on Marquise Brown. I actually don't think I've played him once yet and feel fortunate to not get burned in weeks 2 and 3, considering his usage. And yeah, he's going to have big games at some point. But, when your ADOT is really far down the field, your catch rate's going to be lower. And so, we'll see. I think he's going to have big games at some point for sure.
Yeah,
Lamar when he has big games are going to be slate-breaking games, is the thing. Based on how deep down the field he's being targeted and how consistently and how many red zone and end zone targets he's getting.
He's getting wide open. Lamar missed him like wide open multiple times for touchdowns last week. Yeah. So I do think he's a guy you just have to consider every week in tournaments. Speed kills. Let's go to the Patriots at Bills. And Adam, you were really high on the Bills coming into the year. Shout out to you. Mm-hmm. And the Bills have been awesome. And now this looks like one of the best like real life games on the slate here. Very curious to see how this plays out. And, the Patriots have obviously been incredible, getting a ton of respect in betting markets throughout the year. They still are. They're 7-point favorites on the road going to Buffalo against this team that's played really, really well. What are the news and notes?
Yeah, I think a better real life game than a fantasy game. From an injury perspective, Julian Edelman sounds like he's going to be back. We'll see. Sounds like it's a rib issue. If he can't go, I hesitate to even bring up team preseason after last week. But team preseason, Jacoby Myers is Julian Edelman's direct backup, I believe, right now. Also, James White, not a subscriber to Gender Labs LLC, is expected back. Congratulations to him. Wish he was a client, but, sometimes you have to miss an NFL game. So if you're not a client, it is what it is. James Devlin, the fullback for the Patriots, is going to be out for a while. And I think, that forces their hand, really. They have no tight ends. Now they have no fullback. It's like they have to go 3 wide. And that's going to make people excited about Philip Dorsett. And I think deservedly so. But this is just such a tough spot. I have so much respect for Buffalo's pass defense and Buffalo's defense in general and playing in the Ralph and et cetera, et cetera. Like I said, Al, I think it's just a better real life game than fantasy game, but we'll see.
I think I'm in a holding pattern with everything on New England's side until we find out a little bit more clarity about Julian Edelman and his chest injury. I think if he doesn't play, I think that it brings somebody like Philip Dorsett more into focus based on his floor of targets, even in a tough defensive matchup here. So if Edelman's there, I totally agree with Adam. If he's not, it opens things up a little bit more as there's a lot more market share of targets to be sprinkled around all the guys that are on the other end of Tom Brady's passes. So, and we've seen games in Buffalo shoot out between Buffalo and New England before. It's not out of the realm of possibility that even though both of these teams have really tough defenses, and I'm not going to be targeting this game right now, things could change by Sunday with some injury news.
Yeah. Father narrative is in play. James White, I think, is a really awesome play.
Baby narrative.
Yeah. And he's going to be a good play regardless, but if Edelman misses, that should be even more targets. You noted the fullback, really bad news for Sony Michel going forward. And I think this team's just going to throw a lot. And I think James White makes a ton of sense. Dorsett makes some sense. The one downside, like Adam referenced, is really tough spot because the Bills defense is really good and it's a tough environment to play in. I do think John Brown, Josh Allen is a stack you want always, although the Patriots defense, this is one of the best Patriots defenses we've seen. So that's my hesitation. I assume you don't like anyone else on Buffalo's side, Adam.
Yeah, I do expect Stephon Gilmore to shadow John Brown, and
which is tough.
That's just like, it's one of the toughest matchups you can have, but hashtag defense doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you'll get that stack really, really low owned, even though this will be one of the lowest equity spots of the season for the Bills. All right, let's transition into the afternoon games, and we start with the Buccaneers.
Hold on. We have a special presentation from Al. Go ahead, Al.
Okay.
Well, Adam, support this week for DraftKings comes from Manscaped, once again, who is number one in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped creates precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, Adam. Manscaped is forever changing the grooming game with their Perfect Package 2.0. Inside the perfect package, you'll find their electric trimmer called the Lawnmower 2.0. This waterproof trimmer features skin-safe technology, and Pete, it's going to protect you from nicking your sack. You can also create less mess by trimming in the shower. It's waterproof. It's time to get clean with this Perfect Package 2.0. Get 20% off your entire order and free shipping, gentlemen, and free shipping with the code DRAFT20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. And please use code DRAFT20 now. Your balls will thank you.
Well done, Al. That was very professional. And
thank you.
From anyone at Manscaped who's listening, I could be your biggest fan and biggest endorser, and I still haven't gotten a follow back from Manscaped. I haven't gotten anything. I feel like my destiny is to promote this company, and you know, here we are on the edge. Al, you just did a professional job. I think Adam would really like to promote this company even more. So if you guys want to send us something your way, Manscaped, we are certainly interested. And we got raving reviews last time we promoted these guys. So
yeah,
just
Pete's
throwing
a
that
huge
out there.
fan of smooth balls. Yeah.
Anyone who uses the phrase "nicking your sack" in an ad read is cool in my book. I mean,
if you nick your sack, it's not good.
Adam said we have another read from Manscaped today. I obviously cannot do this, so Al, you have to do the read.
Al, you're a professional. That was very.
That's
very
why
strong.
Al's on ESPN and I'm in my mom's basement. You know what I mean?
I'm not as good as Rebecca Grant at these Manscaped ad reads. She probably sells a lot more of the ball smoothing technology than I do, but still.
I don't know. I think our audience is really interested in this product. Daddy referenced he got a new. He got himself groomed, and yeah, these guys. I think we hit the sweet spot here.
Shout out to Rebecca Grant.
Yeah, shout out to her, and shout out to you, Al, for an incredible read.
Thank you.
All right, Buccaneers at Rams. This is a really confusing game for me. Huge spread here. Rams are really, really big favorites. Buccaneers coming off obviously a really bad loss, some confusing coaching decisions, saying, oh, we want to be farther back for the field goal. But yeah, this is a game where the Rams are implied for a ton of points, Adam. What are the news and notes here?
Yeah, the God himself, Chris Godwin, missed practice on Wednesday, missed practice on Thursday with a hip issue. I don't know if it's just rest or if he's actually in danger of missing, so we'll have to find out on Friday. If he can't go, I presume Brashad Perriman would kind of slip into a 2/3 role, and they'd probably get, I don't know, Justin Watson. And I lost a ton of money on Justin Watson in the preseason because he was playing a ton and just not producing. So that one scares me a little bit, but Justin Watson does have really strong measurables. We'll see though. Chris Godwin may still end up playing. And yeah, on the other side of the ball, I mean, the Rams are just like so healthy all the time. I have no injury news, but there's something going on between Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff because they have some serious chemistry going on right now. And whereas in the past, I thought it was like pretty even and hard to project, I think that now you can, or you have to at least project Cooper Kupp to lead the Rams in targets on a week-to-week basis, and certainly an excellent matchup. I mean, Tampa Bay has been lights out against the run and really struggling against the pass.
Hercules. I am on Team Cooper Kupp every single week, and after 3 weeks with 31 targets, leading the team in terms of red zone looks with 22% of the red zone looks on this team. And even though Sean McVay is saying that Todd Gurley is not on any sort of load management program, I don't trust Sean McVay, because he is not seeing the amount of volume that he got last year. They have thrown the lowest amount of passes to their running backs, the Rams, which has meant more targets going in the shorter A-dot sort of throws towards Cooper Kupp. And everything just points that way. Jared Goff at home, 26.4 DK points per game in home games since the beginning of last year. Fire up those Goff to Kupp stacks. Ship it. Pete?
Yeah, love that call. I think you can also pivot to Brandon Cooks, who I like every single week as well in tournaments, given the type of player that he is. Robert Woods will probably do something at some point. But yeah, Kupp is the clear highest equity play. And Jared Goff, yeah, he has some of the most severe home road splits of any quarterback. So really, really like him. Great stat there, Al. On the Buccaneers side, if you're going to run it back, if Godwin does miss, it's going to be all about Mike Evans. Is OJ Howard ever going to do anything, Adam?
Yeah, I think the way that OJ Howard was used last week was pretty similar to the way he was used before. He just happened to pick up 4 targets, catch 3 balls. I mean, Cam Brate's still running routes. So, yeah, I mean, I think we need to treat OJ Howard as a risky, low floor kind of, 2/3 of the dropbacks he's going to run a route on. That just is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very
He hasn't
wrong.
even gotten to that point. Like he's been under that every single week. 17 routes on 29 dropbacks last week, and that was his high through the first 3 weeks.
I was very excited about OJ Howard coming into the season. The usage is extremely concerning. Hope he can do something here. But yeah, it is concerning given how few routes he's running relative to the expectation and the usage of Cameron Brate. And also, I have to be concerned about the coaching staff here. I mean, it's just some really head-scratching moves by this Buccaneers team. But it is what it is. Jameis has played better the last couple of games. But, yeah, one game against the Giants, who we know are just giving up tons of yards passing, tons of deep throws, which is where Jameis excels. So we'll see. We'll see how he does against this Rams team on the road. All right. Let's move to the Seahawks at Cardinals, which is a game we are all really excited about. Al has his flow chart. Adam, you're a huge Russell Wilson guy. This is a hashtag team sex moment and spot to evaluate. Russell Wilson's been freaking awesome this year. What are the news and notes? And it sounds like Russell Wilson you expect to be the chalkiest quarterback on the slate.
Yeah, Rashad Penny remains questionable. I mean, I talked a lot on the solo pod about the Chris Carson situation. You can go back and listen to that for what it's worth. The Seahawks have said that you're going to see how much confidence we have in Chris Carson. Like, we're not backing off Chris Carson despite the 4 fumbles in 3 games. You're going to see what confidence in a guy looks like or what support in a guy looks like. So we'll see on Rashad Penny. At this point, I kind of hope Rashad Penny plays just so that, kind of takes Chris Carson a little bit more out of play. And yeah, I mean, look, I called week 1 for Matthew Stafford the best spot he'd see all year. Lamar Jackson, week 2, the best spot he'd see all year. Week 3, Kyle Allen, the best spot he'll see all year. So it's the best spot that Russ Wilson is going to see all year. The paths to failure for Russell Wilson are narrow. The path to failure is simply Arizona doesn't show up, Seattle gets a 14-0 lead, and then they run the ball literally like 50 straight times. And they will do that if they get a 14-0 lead. And it'll be painful. But if Arizona can put up any kind of fight, score any kind of points, I mean, you saw what happened last week when Russ has to pass a lot. It's just a total Yahtzee fest. And obviously, Tyler Lockett is just a total Yahtzee fest. So, yeah, I mean, they didn't price Russ up enough. And yeah, I'll let Al do his flow chart bit now. The only thing that I'll let Al go first, and then I'll.
It's not a bit, though.
Well, I'll try to poke a hole in it. Go ahead.
All right, fine. Will Dissly, 26% of the market share of red zone targets, 4 of them on the season, leading Seattle right now in terms of red zone targets. 3 of those have turned into touchdowns so far. We know that he blocks about 50 to 60% of the time on Wilson's dropback, so he's not going to be heavily utilized between the 20s, but he's utilized enough through the first 3 weeks with a 15% market share of targets. And now he's the only tight end on the team as they traded Nick Vannett. So to me, it seems like kind of a layup at 3,600, kind of like Greg Olsen looked like a layup at 3,600. And every single tight end that Arizona has played against this year has scored over 20 DraftKings points. I think they've given up, 81 DraftKings points to the 3 tight ends in total that they've played so far. I'm not predicting a 30-point game, but there's definite touchdown upside with a solid floor of targets, getting 7 targets last week and what, to get 5 or 6 the week before. I'm not fact checking that, but it was close enough. So a good floor of targets there with really high touchdown upside. I love Russ Wilson in this matchup. I think that Lockett's great. And if you guys are familiar with trust falls, if you've ever heard of those, that new age sort of thing, Chris Carson, are you willing to take a trust fall with Chris Carson here? Because as Adam pointed out, they're going full Dido on this dude. They will go down with this ship. They ain't going to throw their hands up and surrender. We're just going to keep handing him the ball.
It's a great matchup. Love. Chris Carson cost me all my life savings last week, so I don't know. I'm feeling a little burned, but I do think he's a really good play. Tyler Lockett's a great play. DK Metcalf in tournaments. I mean, talk about a dream spot. Hey, DK, just go be a man amongst boys and run down the field and have Russell Wilson has been absurdly accurate this season. So I like that play as well. I think Disley's great. And then on the Arizona side, I'm actually quite high on Christian Kirk as well, who I think has been a little unlucky with his overall, fantasy points scored. He's getting a ton of opportunity. He's a great athlete. Larry Fitzgerald's a guy catching like the 1-yard touchdowns right now, but at some point I think Christian Kirk is going to have some monster games. So this is a clear game to stack. And, if you've stacked these Arizona games to start, you're doing well. So, Adam, your thoughts on Larry Fitzgerald versus Christian Kirk and maybe some other Arizona plays?
Yeah. First of all, like Arizona, I mean, they just suck, man. Like the only reason that they're good in fantasy is because they run so many plays and they're so pass heavy. But what they do is they just throw them all super short and they highlight the slots. That's why you see Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk racking up so many catches. I mean, their floor in PPR is so high for both of them. Yeah, we didn't even mention David Johnson, who I think remains underpriced too. I believe he's 6,800 this week. On the Will Dissly thing, a guy, I think I don't know if the flow chart is real. I think the flow chart is real in that everybody against Arizona is going to score a ton of fantasy points. Yes. I'm not sure it's definitely tight ends, right? Like
it has been so far.
Right. But you could say that the flow chart is just for the entire, so it's been for quarterbacks also, you know what I mean? Like,
right. But more so for the tight ends. The quarterbacks have scored like 20 to 30 points and the tight ends have scored like 25 to 35 points. More valuable to get a 20 to 35 point game out of a tight end than a quarterback. You can find 10 quarterbacks on a slate to get you 20 to 30 points.
I hear you. It's like the day I get excited about a tight end who's running around on like 50% of the snaps and ran like a 4.9 coming out of college. It's just like, I hear you. And he's probably a fine play. I'm not going to be excited about it. And yeah.
I can't wait for if he catches a touchdown this weekend, rip your mentions, man. Shout out to the listeners who are going to flood your mentions this weekend as soon as Disley finds his way to post up in the end zone and just calls for that post pass and he hits him because his quarterback's a monster with efficiency, especially inside the red zone. And then you're going to be eating all the crow. Please make Adam eat crow.
Yeah. And I'm not, people are going to say, oh, you played well. I might end up playing Will Dissly. I really might. I just said I'm not going to be excited about it. I mean, dude ran, I see it now. He ran a 4.87.
I mean, you don't have to run a 4.4 to play tight end in this league.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps, but like you don't need to. It's a position where size matters and positioning matters and posting up matters.
Size matters.
That's what she said. Yeah. Hashtag make it bigger.
Yeah. Shout out to Manscaped.
Shout out to Manscaped. One other note.
The optical.
That optical inch, yeah. Very important.
One other just quick note. Kyler Murray ran a lot more last week, which is really encouraging. This Seattle defense isn't as good either. I mean, I think they have some talented pieces, but they have a lot of holes as well. And I agree. I think the downfall for this Cardinals team is they have a terrible offensive line, but Kingsbury's scheming for that, and they're throwing a ton of short passes, and they're trying to make sure Kyler stays healthy. Kyler,
can we eschew the points that Cardinals should score pretty much every single week for the sack upside for their opposing defense? What they give up 9 sacks last week?
Yeah, they're going to give up sacks because Kyler's going to run around, and even some of the sacks that they get are like Kyler just like running to the sideline to just like try to save himself, and they get him down
and get out of bounds. Yeah, that's a sack. Perfect.
Yeah, so I do think the Seahawks defense is somewhat intriguing, and if you're going to go away from Russ, playing Carson and the Seahawks defense makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the Cardinals guys are to me are probably a little underrated in this game specifically, just because on DraftKings, those PPR points are so valuable, and specifically Christian Kirk. I really like him a lot this week. Any final thoughts, boys?
Nope.
All right. We got 2 just awesome games to finish out this slate. We got the Vikings at Bears, Adam. Some plays here, I guess, but it certainly looks like a defensive game. What are the news and notes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame because, Dalvin Cook is obviously one of the best fantasy players in the entire league right now, but he's been priced up and he's on the road in Chicago. So, the best argument that you can make for Dalvin Cook is A, defense doesn't matter, and B, nobody's going to be on him, or relatively to what he's done so far, nobody's going to be on him. Taylor Gabriel had a concussion. I don't know if he's going to be back or not, but either way, I mean, this whole game is just going to be massively under. And what I said at the top about 2 games under 40, Minnesota, Chicago, Jacksonville, Denver, the 2 games we're going to do here, I believe are those 2 games that are under 40. And then there's other games too that we talked about, Indy, Oakland, and New England, Buffalo, where I wouldn't be surprised if those games landed under 42. So for these reasons,
Adam, you're 100% right about all this stuff, except the Oakland Indy game's currently sitting at 45.
Okay, well, I'm gonna get off of this and go ahead and bet the under there. What's the New England Buffalo total, by the way?
42.5. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say both of those stay above 40. Specifically the Oakland
Adam's going to fire
game.
so hard at that Oakland game that it's going to go under. It's going to end at 39.5 because Adam's going to fire so much steam on the under at that game that he's going to move lines. Adam moves lines.
Yeah.
He's going to move it from 45 to 40.
Yep. He's going to fire.
I will commend you in a big way.
One townhouse on the under, please.
Yeah. So no, I mean, for both these games, or at least for Minnesota, Chicago, like you said, there's definitely good fantasy players in this game in general. It's just nobody's gonna be on it because of the spot, and I can't really make a case to be on any of them given their salaries and the spot
and usage. I mean, maybe a tournament dart throw at Steph Diggs, who is disappointed and his price is down. And Chicago has given up big games to opposing wide receivers so far this season. It's the one spot that you can kind of attack this defense through fantasy is that wide receiver, and everybody's going to float towards Thielen. So maybe you get a 2% Stephon Diggs and he catches a touchdown and has 80 yards. I don't know. I mean, other than that, pass. Not interested.
Yeah, hopefully Steph Diggs does something here. I've been wrong about him coming into the season as well. Love Dalvin Cook, but a brutal spot. Bears defense, I guess, is somewhat intriguing, but they might be popular after the huge performance they put up on Monday night. I like Allen Robinson every single week, but this is a tough spot too. So yeah, 38 total, really hard to find a lot of fantasy options. But maybe some more options in this next game. We have the Jaguars at the Broncos sitting at 38. The biggest shock to me this year so far is the lack of pressure this Broncos defense is putting on opposing quarterbacks. I think we'd be, coming into the year looking at the Broncos versus the Jaguars with a backup quarterback in, we'd be salivating to play the Broncos defense, but that just has not been the case. Hard to find some options that you like here, Adam. What are the news and notes?
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey's situation has just gone completely off the rails. He's not going to play in this game, I don't believe. And they also have injuries at along the defensive line. Miles Jack, I think, is questionable too at the linebacker position. Like this defense, I think, from a personnel standpoint, at least, is not what it once was. So maybe you can make a case for guys like Phillip Lindsay. Looks like Royce Freeman banged up his shoulder last week. Sounds like he's going to be okay. But obviously Ramsey not playing in theory is good news for Cortland Sutton and Manny Sanders. I've kind of made a case to myself that regardless of Leonard Fournette usage, we can't let it get away from us in terms of outlook, just because it's just we have such a big sample now over the last 2 years of Leonard Fournette getting really strong usage and just not producing fantasy points. So, the sample size is getting really big on that. So yeah, I don't have a ton of plays here. Either or a ton of interest really, but I do think Jacksonville's defense is maybe more susceptible than people realize.
But what if Fournette scores 2 touchdowns?
Yeah. Well, then he would be a good play.
Right. Because that's all. Because the volume's there, right? So he's getting 6 targets, 8 targets.
Yeah, you could
he's
make
getting a ton of volume. He sucks though.
You could make a case that Leonard Fournette has the best RB role in the entire league, besides
outside
McCaffrey.
Of Christian McCaffrey.
Besides McCaffrey, yeah.
Right, he's game flow. When would we have ever thought we would say that Leonard Fournette is a game flow independent running back? Because that's where the volume is right now. 13, 15, 15 rush attempts in each of the first 3 games. 6 targets in all 3 with 8 as a high against Tennessee. He had 66 yards rushing against Tennessee and had a long run of 69 yards. How do you have less yards than your longest run of the day when you have 15 carries? That's incredible.
Running for negative yards over and over and over again, then busting that long one. Tough to find plays. Emmanuel Sanders burns me every single week, so I'm sure he'll go off for 2 touchdowns. I won't have him. But I do want to read a tweet from friend of the podcast, Evan Silva. Quiet year 2 breakout for Broncos receiver Cortland Sutton. Catch rate up 70% versus 50% last year as a rookie. He's now 23rd of 81 for receivers and yards per route run, 2.11 versus 1.32 as a rookie. Leads Denver in air yards by 75 yards over Emmanuel Sanders. Yet Emmanuel Sanders is doing all the damage. Top 15 among NFL receivers in receiving yards. And he's still not scored a touchdown. And Evan pointed out, regression should come. So Cortland Sutton, like him. Hopefully he does something. I don't know if I like him in formats in DFS this week, but shout out to me for being bullish on Cortland Sutton.
Is he going to draw Ramsey, who has basically shut down everybody so far?
Well, Ramsey's not going to play.
Yeah,
I hope he draws Ramsey. I hope Ramsey's covering him from wherever, Nashville. That'd be great.
Yeah. I mean, no, my bad. But first of all, get Pete a flag for this victory lap. As he
I can't even make a victory lap.
It's like these victory laps before a guy even does anything. He's taking a victory lap on opportunity, not even.
I'm taking a victory lap on the signal, and my bank account is going down on the results because it has not worked out well.
It's like these sick
Get him
people.
the Colorado flag as he takes a victory lap around Mile High Stadium here.
These sick people. I mean, we're sending screenshots of their best ball teams before the season started. Like, these people are sick out there. This reminds me of that, Pete. I mean, victory lap before we even get it in the box score. And yeah, I don't think it's the best place for Cortland Sutton to put it in the box score. But I mean, yeah, second year leap from a talented guy would not surprise me at all. So go ahead and victory lap.
I'm not even trying to take the victory lap. I'm more just, there's some slander about Cortland Sutton on this podcast, so I'm trying to boost him up. And when you're losing, you can't really take many victory laps. So you just take, this guy's getting a lot of opportunity victory laps on Cortland Sutton. I'm expecting Emmanuel Sanders to score 3 touchdowns and Cortland Sutton to score 0 fantasy points this week. So, any final thoughts here, boys?
Yeah,
Nope.
I don't want to play anybody from this game.
Yeah, what a terrible 2 games to end the podcast with. If you are sweating this down the stretch, which hopefully you all are, hopefully you have a lot of guys in that Seahawks-Arizona game. We're all bullish there. Al, get us out of here.
Listener League reminder.
Guys, thanks for joining once again. Jump into that Listener League. You know how to do it. You know how to get there. Learn how to use Google if you don't already. It's a tremendous tool. Okay? I'm not going to make any tool jokes there past what we've already done on this podcast, but thank you for joining once again. For Adam, for Jerry, for producer Luke, for Pete, I'm Al. If we don't win a GPP this week, we hope that one of you guys do. Bye, everybody.
We are promoters at DraftKings and also avid fans. Our usernames are Adam Levitan, Al Smizzle, and CSU Ram 88. We may sometimes play on our personal accounts in the games that we offer advice on. Although we have expressed our personal view on the games and strategies in this podcast, they do not necessarily reflect the views of DraftKings, and we also may deploy different players and strategies than what we recommended in this podcast.